there are microplastics in your testicles, and it's worrying. But can we cut to a video, please? I have a video here. It's a very viral video. And this is presaging. This is a sort of proof of concept. So entertain me for a little bit, and I will be getting to the story very soon. But I need to get some ground rules down, right, about how these sorts of things work, right? So let's have a listen to the most sane man in politics, Alex Jones.
In the water that turned the friggin' frogs gay.
You may have seen this clip before, and you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute. It's a funny meme, but gay frogs, I don't believe you. Well, it's not quite right, but it's spiritually right in a sense. So if we swap to the web, here we are. Sorry, I was presaging stuff here. Sorry, I'm interfering. Sorry, Samson. So here we are. This is the study that Alex Jones was actually on about, and it wasn't turning them gay. It was turning them hermaphroditic, or I think that's how that's pronounced.
It made them women.
It made them hermaphrodites. But it made them biologically women. So I think they're actually able to birth other frogs. They were functional female frogs. So what happened here?
So sexually autonomous.
Not exactly. No, I'm a big fan of autonomy, but it didn't go quite that far, unfortunately.
Big thunk science talk going on right now.
Oh, so here's the abstract here. And the part I wanted to read is that we hypothesize that atrazine, which is the most commonly used pesticide in the world, by the way, induces aromatase, I think I'm pronouncing that right, which is an enzyme that converts androgens into estrogens, estrogen, the women hormone, and promotes the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. So, and it says, the disruption in steroidogenesis likely explains the demasculinization of the male larynx and the production of hermaphrodites. So what this is saying is that chemicals introduced into perhaps a water supply may induce changes in your hormonal balance based on exposure. And there was also a case of this where researchers in Japan used soybean compounds to make a male catfish, obviously, 100% female. So yes,
they should have got a picture of of one of the catfish soy facing. Yeah.
But yes, catfish are now soy. Don't even eat them. They might turn you into the opposite sex if you're a man. If you're a woman, I imagine it's okay. But onto the actual meat and potatoes, if you pardon the pun, of this segment. Microplastics have been found in every human testicle in a study. Now, this is actually quite important and quite concerning, mainly if you have testicles, but also if you don't. For the men watching, and I suppose a few ladies potentially too, if you have a set of testicles, this should concern you.
Well, Josh, you've got to remember that just because you've got testicles doesn't mean you're not woman these days. So women watching as well, just in case, you might need to pay some attention to this.
I didn't mean to be offensive. So I'm going to read from this article from The Guardian because it's actually one of the best articles on this story. I know it's rare, but The Guardian did a good job here. So I'm going to read a little bit from this, and then I'm going to explain what it means and how it fits into the context of other chemical exposures to the human body and how it might change us. And I'm only going to be citing what other people have said. I'm not going to be reading into things because, I'm a psychologist. I'm not a biologist. I don't really have a full understanding of this. So if I make some mistakes, which there may well be, I'm sorry, but I'm going to direct you to the sources of people who seem to know better at the very least. So it says, microplastics have been found in every human testicle, with researchers saying the discovery might be linked to declining sperm counts in men. Scientists tested 23 human testes. That's, I imagine, sets of them rather than otherwise someone's got one missing.
Or they just stopped halfway through and they said, we've seen enough.
We've handled enough balls for today. As well as 47 testes from pet dogs, they found microplastic pollution in every sample, which is horrifying. So that seems to suggest that all testicles have microplastics, at least if this can be extrapolated.
So explain to us... Oh, sorry.
No question. How large a sample is this? Number one.
23 sets of testicles.
Yeah. 23 people.
Mm-hmm.
But dogs as well.
But this is the first study of its kind, right? So it's like almost like a pilot study to signal more study. There might be some people that don't have any microplastics that live, very far away and eat well. But the implication here is that it's so widespread, the exposure to microplastics, that likely everyone has some in them, right?
Okay.
I think I probably would.
Right, what are microplastics for the audience, and what makes them bad to have in you, especially
I'll be
in your
getting to
balls?
what makes them bad in a second, but microplastics are just, as the name suggests, very, very small plastics. You might not even be able to see them, but they have a physical presence. They're a physical thing. They're not necessarily chemical, although when they eventually break down, they do release chemicals. But we'll be talking about that, and I've got it sort of structured so it should be relatively easy to understand how this all plays out. So it says here, the human testicles had been preserved, and so their sperm count could not be measured. However, the sperm count in the dog's testes could be assessed and was lower in samples with higher contamination with PVC, which of course is a kind of plastic. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that there's going to be a significant difference in that PVC effect on humans or dogs, right? It's mammalian. There's a reasonable amount of crossover. There's a reason why psychologists sometimes test neuronal studies on rats, for example, because there are still some commonalities that we can look at, right? So it would probably translate. And it says the study demonstrates a correlation, but further research is needed to prove microplastics cause sperm counts to fall. But this is, of course, the first of its kind, and it seems to indicate that they probably do. So, don't take it completely at face value, but I think it's probably likely that it is the case. Sperm counts in men have been falling for decades, with chemical pollution such as pesticides implicated by many studies. Microplastics have also recently been discovered in human blood, placentas, and breast milk. So, ladies, you're actually not off the hook because they've already been discovered in, female reproductive organs. I'm merging my words together.
It's those microplastics.
Indicating widespread contamination of people's bodies. Yeah, I've got them in my brain.
Well, can they
Plastics
get in your brain?
Taking over. Well, funny enough, there aren't many studies of human brains that are living because, if you remove the brain and cut it up to see if there's plastic in there, it somewhat hurts the person.
But from a process of elimination, from what you're seeing in this, would it be possible?
I would imagine it is possible to be present in all cells in the human body, which is worrying, obviously. But
you see all the world plastic then, and you sing like a Ken doll.
Yeah, you.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Connor's just been exposed to a large amount of microplastic. That's why he likes the Barbie movie so much.
Carl too.
That's it. So if you like the Barbie movie, you may have been overexposed to microplastics. That's not scientific advice. Vast amounts of plastic waste are dumped in the environment, and microplastics have polluted the entire planet, from the summit of Mount Everest to the deepest oceans. I think they've been found in the Mariana Trench as well. People are known to consume tiny particles via food, water, as well as breathing them in.
So you breathe them just as a course of going about your day?
It seems like it. There are certain fabrics, like curtains and certain kinds of clothes, that actually release them, which is a bit worrying, really, isn't it? That you could be wearing things that are slowly poisoning you and making your sperm count drop. I'm slightly worried now. Quick, take off your clothes, everyone.
So this is going to be a nudist podcast from this episode on.
It doesn't apply to the t-shirts we're selling, though, I must say.
I haven't tested them for microplastics, but I'm not going to agree to that. But it carries on to say, the particles could lodge in tissue and cause inflammation, as air pollution particles do, or chemicals in the plastics could cause harm. In March, doctors warned of potentially life-threatening effects after finding a substantially raised risk of stroke, heart attack, and earlier death in people whose blood vessels were contaminated with microscopic plastics. So that's obviously very concerning, right? That's a very real health effect of this. And human testicles had a plastic concentration almost 3 times higher than that found in the dog testes, 330 micrograms per gram of tissue, compared to the 123 micrograms. And by the way, there are 1 million micrograms in a gram. So to put that in perspective, right, 330 out of 1 million total. So yeah, it's still too much, but at the same time, I don't want to be too sensational here. So polythene used in plastic bags and bottles was the most common microplastic found, followed by PVC. So those are the things to watch out for if you're worried. So the thing that mostly concerned me is that most plastics leach hormone-like chemicals. And this is from NPR. This isn't conspiratorial or anything. This is mainstream stuff. And it says somewhere down here, I can't remember where it was. I think it was a bit further down. Here we are. The testing showed that more than 70% of the products released chemicals that acted like estrogen, and that was before they exposed the stuff to real-world conditions, simulated sunlight, dishwashing, and microwaving. The guy they were talking to, the expert, said. And interestingly, I've seen this graph shared in mainstream media. I think this was GQ magazine shared this, and this is plastic production laid over sperm count. So if you're listening, basically the trend is as plastic production goes up, sperm count goes down, and there's a sort of inverse correlation. Seemingly, it could be coincidental.
I was watching something like this in a Reject Modernity, Embrace Masculinity video, and
Stelios is a connoisseur of which.
Yeah, they were saying things like that. But if the resume is that basically it's clothes, question is, has a nudist written this?
It might be nudist propaganda.
Yeah.
We haven't looked into that yet.
Well, I would also have to question as well, just on balance of fairness, if this also would correlate with, say, greater sedentary lifestyles.
It could correlate with a lot of things. Yes. And that's part of the reason I said that, it could be other things, and it could be...
I mean, correlates with sedentary lifestyles, obesity epidemics, lack of physical exercise, people not going outside as much.
Exposure to birth control runoff to foreshadow.
Yes, yeah.
Harry, thank you for bringing the layman's perspective, where I introduced the scientific one when talking about nudists.
I'm always here to represent the plebs.
Talking of science, rats here, they've tested them for the effect of microplastics, and I'm going to read this. It's very wordy, but I can explain what it means. Histological examinations of testicular architecture showed distorted testes with vacuolated semi-furious... that's not right.
Semi-nefarious. Semi-nefarous.
That's it, yeah, seminiferous tubules at the highest percentage, together with increased catalase and decreased superoxide dismutase activities. I speak words.
Where is it? I could help you translate.
That would just be humiliating, the non-native speaker translating it for me. It's on the screen here.
Third line, what line?
It's all right, I'm reading it now. This study showed that ingestion of MSPs cause reproductive dysfunction in male rats and contributes to understanding the potential toxicity of microplastics. I could have just read that bit, but, I wanted to read all of the scientific jargon as well. So how do they get in the body? We've already touched on it a little bit, but various sources... consuming polluted food and water, inhaling airborne particles, and also you can absorb them through the skin. And that means that they've been found in things like blood clots in the heart, and there you go, the brain and legs as well. So that's a bit concerning. They've also been found to affect the diversity of gut microbiomes. And that's quite important because there's a sort of burgeoning amount of research looking at the effect of gut microbiomes on certain conditions. Like it's seen to play an important role in things like Alzheimer's. So it's important to keep a healthy gut microbiome.
I will also say, it seems that you basically can't avoid them. They're literally everywhere.
Yes.
So I saw, you've not got it in the segment, so I'm happy to say it. Raw Egg Nationalist shared a study about a day ago now, where people who were studying the effects of microplastics within laboratory conditions were finding difficulty to be able to get uncontaminated laboratory conditions. It's impossible, basically, to study the effects of microplastics without already contaminating yourself and the laboratory. Without them.
There are only 2 labs in the world that can do it at the minute, which is really quite concerning because we need to study this. This affects everyone in the world, potentially. So it's also been found to affect immune systems as well. It's hypothesized at the minute because it's a sort of theory, but not only will it sort of be absorbed by macrophages, they say, which is a type of white blood cell that kills, foreign invaders. So it's, the border force of the body, and gets rid of dead cells. And they engulf these beads of plastic entirely, and that makes them behave differently, which might suggest, we don't know yet, that they don't work as well in providing their protective function from things like harmful bacteria and other bodily invaders. It's also thought that these tiny bits of plastic could also be sort of Trojan horses for introducing forms of bacteria into the body more easily as well, which is a bit concerning because it might make you ill more often. And what's even more concerning is that bottled water contains 250,000 nanoplastic pieces on average. And this has also been reported elsewhere as well. 240,000 pieces of the Guardian, the Mail, Freudian slip there, cancer-causing nanoparticles, 100 times more than previously thought. So this is really quite worrying. This has only come out in January of this year. And even if you drink tap water, you don't go to bottled water, there are still microplastics in it. And only if you have hard water will boiling it potentially remove 90% of the microplastics if you then filter it through a coffee filter. I did find that water filters could potentially remove some of it, and it somewhat helps because they are a physical thing, and if you've got a really good water filter, it can pull it out. However, there are also concerns about tap water as well, because you don't even need the microplastics, because here is The Guardian in 2012 talking about a massive £30 billion bill to purify water systems after contraceptive pill runoff. So the contraceptive pill, obviously, very little of the actual hormone released in it. The body uptakes, and a lot of it goes out in wastewater, so urine goes back into the water supply when it's purified, but it's very difficult to remove, and it goes back into this water cycle and ends up in our tap water. So you don't even necessarily need the microplastics when you're already getting doses of estrogen via the pill already. And
don't you love the modern world, gentlemen?
It's a bit horrifying, isn't it?
Isn't this wonderful? I'm so glad that this is happening.
Tell me if you have anticipated the point, but the question here is, are there things people can do to reverse this?
Try and avoid plastics.
Yeah, but are there extra things that have been proven to be correlated with...
Stelios is wanting nudism as the answer.
Nudism's not the answer. I think drinking filtered water, clean water, avoiding plastic, maybe checking if your clothing contains plastic is the best way you can do it. Buying food that is grown sort of from, say, a farm shop or something like that might be better than something that's mass-produced and shipped, covered in plastic, as you get in most sort of supermarkets and shops. So it's pretty widespread. But there has been a debate about the significance of estrogenicity of drinking water, and some say that there's not enough in there to actually have an impact on the human body. Some do. And here we are. There are also forever chemicals in there. This is Northeastern University. This is, again, a mainstream source. There are other chemicals as well in tap water to be concerned about that may have an effect on your body. And the final thing is that lots of drugs are entering water systems through urine. So that might also mean runoff from illegal drugs as well, as this article is talking about.
So it's not all bad.
Yeah, you might, run the tap and your pupils dilate and you're having a great time. But no, to be serious, this is potentially something that is a catastrophe for humanity. It's actually a really important thing. And I know I've been joking about it, but if it becomes harder and harder to actually have children because we've been polluting the environment so much with these microplastics and with the contraceptive pill runoff and lots of other chemicals like pesticides, this is should be a global scandal. This should be a tragedy that every human being's body is potentially being affected by these things. And so I wanted to draw it to your attention because it's worrying. I think something should be done about this. And it's not something that, we can really avoid. There needs to be societal change. I'm starting to sound like Greta Thunberg, but when it comes to testicles, I take it seriously. And on
personally, I'm just glad that it's brought my testosterone down to a manageable level.
Yeah, it's made me capable to integrate with civilization. So thank you, microplastics.
Yeah.
Is this why we can't find the Bigfoot?
Well, Bigfoot has been exterminated by microplastics. He's not been able to reproduce because it brought his sperm count down too much. On the point of the sperm count as well, what I would suggest is that it's basically a mixture of all of the different factors that we've been talking about, which has led to this graph.
Well, of course, yeah. It seems to me to be a multitude of different factors sort of chipping away, right? That's the most obvious example of a reasonable perspective on it, because it's an undeniable phenomenon, that's for sure.
I know it's a cliche to say, but I think one of the best ways to manage your hormones as a bloke is probably get good exercise, lift weights, eat well. They're cliches, but they are for a reason. They work.
You just need to work harder. That's
yeah. Oh right, Andrew. Bloody Tate's over here.
Yeah, that's right. My chin's gonna recede. My hair's gonna fall out.
You're going to be surrounded by Lamborghinis.
Oh, well, fair trade, to be honest. I'll take that. But yes, hopefully there's going to be more research into this to sort of push this. But I wanted to make people aware of it because it is very important. So do what you can. If you find any more research on this, I am interested because it's a very important thing. I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast to the Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see what else we're up to, we have released a very good magazine. It's one of the best things we've ever done. And if you want to find it, you can find it at shop.lotuseaters.com via our website. And you can pre-order it there. Also, you can follow the rest of our work if you follow us on Twitter. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.